Ladies and gentlemen, are you having a good conference? Yes. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Fantastic in here. In the Livecast lounge, nothing. Nothing. Dead silence. Welcome to Black Swans, Butterflies, and Brunelleschi. A little presentation on the role of uncertainty in poker, business, and life with myself, Caspar. It is a pleasure to be back at Thinking Digital, long-time attendee, second-time speaker. And really the reason I think that it's such a pleasure to be here is because you get to hear other speakers like Carlos, that previous presentation, which was absolutely beautiful. And Nancy, actually, interestingly, yesterday told me why I would prefer to listen to other speakers sit out there in the audience, because out there, when I'm sitting there, I am a hero. You are all heroes right now. And right now, for the next 25 minutes, I'm just a bit player. And I tell you what, folks, I would rather be a hero in other people's presentations than a bit player in my own. But I did find that a very interesting presentation by Nancy, and it motivated me to contact my PA last night and to try and get some feedback, some thoughts. What have the heroes of presentations of mine in the past said about me? And bless her, she sent through some feedback. This is absolutely genuine. A couple of people have said too fast, a lot of ideas but didn't really come together. Fantastic. Spoke too quickly, that's a recurring theme. Very funny, said one. I'm not sure if that was deliberate. These are genuine. Very fast. I liked it, but I wasn't really sure where it was going at first. Okay, and way too fast. Right, so those are some of the things that people have said in the past, but I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that I have done nothing to try and overcome those objections here today, all right? With one exception, and that is this penultimate one. I liked it, but I wasn't really sure where it was going at first, because I'm sure you can appreciate there is an irony, isn't there? There's an irony to the point of incompetence of doing a presentation on uncertainty if you are all uncertain. You see where I'm going with this, all right? So I'm going to start for one time only with a roadmap, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I'm going to be talking about over the course of the next 23 minutes. I'm going to start by asking what is uncertainty, give it some kind of definition, and then we're going to look at why it's an issue for us in our lives. We're going to then look at the causes of uncertainty, try and get to grips with it, ask what we do about it at the moment, and then conclude with a few personal thoughts about what we should be doing about uncertainty in our life. And I'm even going to cut right to the quick, just in case anyone gets really bored and wants to go out for coffee early, and tell you what my point is, my principle, my tenet, my passion, if you like, is that as frustrating as uncertainty is, it is actually the very thing that gives us meaning as people. In fact, I'm even going to give you my very last line. I'm going to finish by saying it is only because tomorrow is uncertain that today has any meaning at all. And when I've said that, I'm going to stop talking, I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to thank you for your time. So, we've got 5 categories to get through. We've got 22 minutes to get through it. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Herb's already said that we're running late. We've got to start quickly. What is uncertainty? As Herb said, I've had a number of different jobs in my life, and the job that I sort of talk about now is being a professional poker player. Some people here may play poker. You may be surprised to learn that up to 50 million Americans claim to play poker on at least a monthly basis. That was certainly a figure that surprised me when I read it, and it's changing all the time. Obviously, internet poker changing the shape of the game radically. More and more women getting into the game. Broadly speaking, I think this is a good thing. More and more young people also getting into the game. Frightening sometimes. I'm okay with this. Slippery slope that I worry about, folks. How long before we see something like that? That's my concern. But you don't need to play poker to appreciate that obviously there are a lot of uncertainties in the game of poker. It is, if you like, a game of uncertainty. But I'd like to sort of strip away the complexity for a moment and just focus on the two main uncertainties in poker. The first one that I'd like to look at is the uncertainty that is our opponent's hole cards. And it's so frustrating if you've ever played the game. You're desperate to know, what have they got down there? And I think that if we extend the metaphor, what that represents in life is that we are always uncertain about certain things about the present. There are things about the here and now that we don't know. That might be as basic as knowledge that we don't have and we'd like to acquire. As relevant to today, it's about data, facts and things. We always want to keep up to date with what is happening on the world around us, and we can only make limited attempts to do that. Some of you right now are there on your Twitter machines. You're finding out about your friends, maybe your family, your peers, your colleagues. And we know right now, don't we, it's interesting, these last 2 or 3 weeks, when someone stops us from finding out about stuff. As insignificant as that stuff might be, we get angry. We feel that we have a right to know as much as possible, to try and minimize our uncertainty. We get angry in poker as well when people wear the shades and the cap. We can't stop them. This guy, Lane Flack, made a whole career out of the hooded top and the shades there. That's going too far, all right, ladies and gentlemen? We don't want to see any of that. But we don't like it. We don't like it. We don't like uncertainty. That's a theme that's going to run throughout this presentation. What's the other main uncertainty in poker? It is the cards to come. What is yet to be dealt? We don't know, and this represents our uncertain future. And this is the great uncertainty that we're grappling with all the time. Always thinking about it in the back of our minds, from trivial little things like what's the weather going to be, to much more important concepts of where's the economy going to go in the next couple of years. Right now, I'm sure one or two of you are thinking about that uncertainty, what is going to happen to that big ash cloud. And we're all, at certain points in our lives, maybe even today, going to spend some time thinking about the big uncertainties of our future. Who are we going to spend the rest of our very brief time on this planet with? Will our retirement be everything that we thought it could be? Or will the world look a very different place in the next 30 years? We don't know the answers to any of these questions. We think about them, but we are inherently uncertain. Another way or prism of looking at uncertainty is a much more traditional way, actually, is to use a diagram. Fans of Donald Rumsfeld will know exactly where this is going from the off. Let's divide all of life into, first of all, that inner circle, the subset of things that we experience that we are absolutely fully cognizant of. Let's say the things that we have sensory experience of. I know I'm standing here addressing a group of people in Newcastle upon Tyne. Those are the known knowns. I would argue, if we had more time, that that's a very, very small circle indeed as a proportion of the whole, but we can agree that there is one at least. Outside of that circle, however, are the known unknowns, the things that we know that we don't know, the things that we are effectively uncertain about. And what's interesting, in the last 30 years, as many speakers here at Thinking to Just Live addressed over the years, is the extent to which we have managed to tame that uncertainty. So, for example, it's a picture of a bank manager who is effectively redundant right now, certainly neutered to the point of frustration, because he doesn't really get to decide who gets the loan anymore. That is a decision made by a computer which crunches a very large amount of data. It doesn't know whether you are a good bet or investment, but it can make some sort of educated assessment, better, actually, the data shows, than he can. We live in a very safe world now. We have all sorts of statistics about people's safety in the workplace and at home, which enables us to make the world a better, safer place. My favourite personal statistic is, of course, that the most dangerous part of any flight is the drive to the airport. I will always still be scared of flying, but that's a fact, and we know that because we've looked at large amounts of data and boiled it all down. And, of course, I'm not a particularly technologically aware person, so this is my very crude example of the way in which the machines with which we interface are able to say very accurate things about us. It's amazing to me constantly that Amazon knows exactly what books I want to buy, but, of course, it doesn't know what books I want to buy. It doesn't read my mind. It will always be uncertain to a greater extent. What we're doing in these examples is making very educated guesses based on large amounts of data. We're taming the uncertainty, the known unknowns. And that would be great if that continued outside that circle, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't. Because outside of that classification of known unknowns, the things that we know we don't know, are, of course, the unknown unknowns. The things that we don't even know we don't know. And these have come to prominence quite a lot recently, particularly with a book which I'm sure many of you are aware of, called The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Let's have a little think about things that constitute black swan events and black swan uncertainties. It says there the impact of the highly improbable, and actually within the book it's not just improbable, they have to be improbable to the point that we barely conceived of them before these events actually happened. So, as improbable as that might be, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, gents, he probably perceived that it could happen to the extent that he probably took some sort of mitigating action, probably wore some sort of protective clothing. That's more of a black swan. That's pretty inconceivable. More so still, that's certainly a black swan. You wouldn't go to the game expecting that that could possibly happen. It comes out of the blue. And yet it has a pretty profound impact on his life, I'm sure. And that's the thing about black swans. It mustn't just affect one person. It must have a pretty profound impact on all of us. So, for example, the rise of Google in the last 10 years, the fall of the Twin Towers, the American subprime crisis. These are things, and let me be completely clear, you may have predicted them because you may have known a lot about the technology industry 10 years ago, or you may know someone who knew a lot about international security, or maybe someone who was writing articles about the fact that people were lending too much money in America. It doesn't matter that individuals knew those things. The point is that collectively, most of us were ignorant. They were things that we haven't even perceived could happen. The black swan is a very subjective concept.